Charging our way through recharge season in the southeast, recent rains have helped bring some areas closer to normal, some above normal. We'll address where we've been and where we are going in today's edition of the Water Resources Outlook. Let's start off by looking at where we've been over the last month. This is the past 7 days departure from normal, and as you can see, we've been rainy during that time, and over Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, all through the coastal Carolinas, we've been above normal, up to 4 to 6 inches above normal over the 7-day period. Now, how does that translate over the 30-day period? Well, we were dry in the early part of February, and so those heavy rainfalls that we saw over those areas didn't even make up in Alabama for what we've been missing earlier in the month. So we're still below normal in some of those areas. However, as we look in central Georgia and the coastal Carolinas, it did make up a little bit for that, and so we're looking a little bit better in some of those areas. And as you can see, we're a little bit above normal all through that area. Now, we've been talking about the traditional El Nino pattern and what we would expect, and we've been talking about this for a long time. And during that time, as you can see in the south part of Georgia and in Florida, we would expect above normal rainfall during an El Nino year. Well, we've been close to El Nino, really neutral, but just close to that El Nino, so we would expect wetness during that time, and that's kind of what we saw during the last month where we did. The forecast from the Climate Prediction Center for January, February, and March that we saw earlier early in January was right here, and this was where they showed wetness over much of Florida and over South Georgia and so forth. So in the end, that was very correct. However, we've ended up being a little bit drier as we've gone out further west. Jeff will talk a little bit more about our climatology and where we're sitting as far as that goes right now.
So snow has been a big topic across most of the central and eastern U.S. this winter, and it has not skipped the southeast region. We see here the latest snowpack, mostly prevalent in the southern Appalachians and Piedmont and coastal regions of North Carolina as of today. We expect most of the snow will melt off the next few days prior to our next significant rain event, which looks to be early next week. So climatologically wise, in this water resource outlook, we're going to go look at the river flood climatology, and we see we are roughly in week 8 to 9 right now. So on the front end of what is typically our most active river flood period in the southeast. And we see we are pretty active. We've had some pretty good precipitation events the last week, and now beginning to see many rivers respond, as you can see by our latest map. Mostly all are minor flooding for now, but overall pretty much what we would expect for this time of year. We look at the number of river floods by week on average, and we see this time of year from roughly the end of February through the end of March on average, we're looking at about 15 to 20 river floods ongoing in the southeast United States. We have about a half a dozen river floods now, but are expecting to be close to 20 minor floods by next week. So right in line with what we typically see for this time of year. And again, most of these are in the coastal plain and Piedmont regions of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, where we normally see minor flooding this time of year. So right now, very typical conditions when it comes to river flooding in the southeast. Scattered minor flooding should continue with additional rain events, but if we get a significant rain event, this will push us up into the significant flooding range in some locations, and coverage should become more widespread. These types of events are not uncommon in mid-March, so we'll have to continue to monitor here at the Southeast River Forecast Center.
Okay, let's take a look at what we can expect precip-wise in the next several days. We're going to start the period with a front across southern Florida. It's going to shift northward on Saturday, but we'll have mostly zonal flow off, mostly west to east flow, and so not seeing much in the way of precip elsewhere across the area until we get into Sunday. We're going to have a trough to our north that's going to be moving eastward, and we're going to be on the southern edge of this. But it looks like we'll see precip across much of the area from Sunday into Monday. Later in the week, then, we're going to have another trough move through. It looks like this one's going to be a bit further south, so probably more coverage across the southeast. And as we look out into the long term, it looks like we're going to have a few more troughs come through the upper flow. So we're expecting above normal precip mounts through much of the southeast. Down into Florida, probably near normal. The troughs right now, at least, look to be further north in the area, kind of similar to what we're expecting next week.
So let's go back to El Nino and talk about where we are right now. In January, our observation showed that we were at a ½ degree above normal out in the Pacific. This is on the borderline between neutral conditions and El Nino conditions. And currently our forecast is showing some above and some below. And so this has not been categorized as an El Nino winter or an El Nino period yet, because we haven't had 5 consecutive 3-month periods where we've been above normal. And so the next month or two will determine whether this will be classified as an El Nino. But what does it mean for our forecast? Well, currently for March we're still looking at above normal rainfall for most of the southeast, with equal chances as we get into central and south Florida. But again, over most of the southeast we're looking at above normal rainfall conditions. As for the seasonal outlook for March through May, it shrinks just a little bit and goes more into the South Georgia and then further into Florida for above normal precipitation. But it does look like the effects of being near neutral or in a El Nino condition are influencing our weather, and that we are going to see above normal precipitation during that time. So the bottom line, in the short term, it's going to be active, but that's normal. March, as Jeff mentioned, is our climatologically most busy time of the year, and we should expect it to be busy during the months of March with some brief times of flooding in the area and with some dryness. As for the long term, we're still kind of in that borderline between the weak El Nino and the neutral conditions. That becomes less important as we move out of the winter and move into the spring and summer season. So we'll watch to see if what happens there, but it's probably not going to have as much an impact through the rest of this season as we originally had thought. And so there'll be some normal fluctuations between some flooding and dryness, which is normal, and we've been that way for the last couple of years. Thank you for listening to today's Water Resources Outlook. For more information about rivers in the Southeast, please visit our website at weather.gov/SERFC. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, where products like this and other information will be posted regularly. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me at todd.hamel@noaa.gov.